Let me just go back. Here we are. Okay, we are in business now. Fair enough? So that's sort of setting the stage for this. Why Agile for manufacturers? Well, some of them, and we've done some research on this, both in North America and in Europe. The Europeans are pretty far ahead on this, particularly Germany, Scandinavia, etc. One of the desires is we want to accelerate and get new products to market fast. I think everyone wants that. Everyone moans and groans that the new product process is very slow. Anybody think the process is too fast here? Yeah, right. Now, you know, there's many reasons for that, but one of them could be the way you're doing the project. Another major reason, you're doing too many projects. That's another, and spreading your focus too thin. The second major issue was we want to get the product right first time. One of the complaints that this guy at Chamberlain, his name's Richard, was complaining about is we would launch a product, especially a B2B product, and have multiple problems in the field. Now, since we've gone to this new methodology, we get it right first time. There's no warranty cost anymore. It really cut that down. It's right when it goes to the field. Because of multiple tests and learning as you go through the multiple cycles. Third reason is we have an IT department, quite separate from product development in our company, that was already getting good results in this Agile method, and they're basically saying, why aren't you trying this? And this is a very early study done in Scandinavia by the lady that coined the term Agile Stage Gate. She now works for Lego because Lego is implementing it both on their B2B and B2C stuff, completely across the company. She found in a case study of 5 firms in that part of the world, including Lego, flexible response, faster response to changing customer requirements. You know the story. The customer says he or she wants X. Really, they wanted Y. Things change. Improved team communication, of course. Improved productivity. That's pretty consistent even today. Better fit between the work process and methods we have in the company. Higher morale. That's a strange one. Nobody expected that. Everyone thought this Agile method is so intense and so high pressure that the teams would collapse under it. They hate it. Quite the reverse is true. The morale is much higher. Improved focus on the project. One of the prerequisites of or requirements of Agile is a 100% focused team. They work on one project only, that's it, 24/7. And they drive it as hard as they can until they get it to market. Now, in manufacturing, you can't do that, can you? There's a lot of reasons why not, but we try to do that. The digital transformation, sort of the example I used from Richard at Chamberlain, is the second big reason for pushing this Agile into manufacturers. Speaking of Scandinavia, quite by coincidence, I was at a conference in Sweden, and this chap who was head of engineering of Volvo construction equipment, these are these big off-highway vehicles with the huge tires. Volvo actually invented this category about 1960. And he was telling me for the next 40 or 50 years, product development meant developing a new engine, or a new transmission, or a new articulation system, or suspension system. He says, you know, in the last couple of years I've noticed that most of our product development is software development. It's not a new engine. It's software to, he says, do you realize that something like 40% of a driver's time in these off-highway vehicles is spent sitting in a queue, waiting for the guy ahead of him to move ahead. We've designed software to optimize the performance of the driver so he can spend less time, or she can spend less time in a queue. That's the kind of stuff we're doing now. And boy, oh boy, it's really changed the face of product development in our company. So what we're getting, just like the guy at Chamberlain in the US, smart products with a lot of embedded software. There was a German study recently, came out in 2018, that attempted to measure how much software amongst manufacturers. The average is about 29%. 29% of the composition of new manufactured products is now software. Interesting. Now, what is composition? How do they measure it? Your guess is as good as mine. But it's a pretty significant percent. Now, I'm a chemical engineer. And Tom, you're in that chemical processing industry, let's say the paint. And many of you here are. Michaelman, for example. Basically, Robert, you're a little tougher. But folks like Dow, Midland, and BASF and Ludwigshafen, these guys are doing it now. Starting. So even though it's not quite as easy to imagine as, say, electrical and mechanical engineering, it is possible for process industries too. I mentioned Volvo Construction. The big challenge that a lot of these companies that wanted to embed software into hardware, they found was they were dealing with IT people and engineering people on the same project. Each using a different system, one using StageGate or something like it, another one using Agile or something like it. Different cultures, different mindsets. Have you ever read the Agile Manifesto? It's a good read. It's easy to Google. You should read the mindset. Bit of a shock. It's like a religion. I shouldn't say that. One option that some companies tried without good results is to split the project into two and run it as two separate projects with two different rooms and two different groups of folks. The software guy and the hardware guy. A Swedish master's study, actually, speaking of research, a master's study done out of a Gothenburg University in Sweden found that this was not a good way. Guess why? Communication issue. The projects didn't dovetail. They have to dovetail. And so the other approach is more of a hybrid model. Come up with a model that both people recognize, both teams recognize. Has elements of Agile and elements of StageGate in it. And that's where the phrase Agile StageGate came from this lady whose name is Anita Summers. Okay. Performance, this is the most recent study I've seen. This is the 2018, a German study done of European firms, some 228 firms using manufacturers. They're mostly engineering companies, engineered type products, chemical, mechanical, electrical type products. And what you see here is two colored blues. The light blue is the expected value. There's a lot of hype around this. You hire a consultant in this Agile field, he'll sing the praises or she'll sing the praises of this like you wouldn't believe. So there's too much hype going in. But even discounting the hype, you'll see some pretty darn impressive results. This is low value, huge value. It's a strange scale, 0 to 4. They're getting very good value in terms of shorter development, improved adherence to schedule, better morale comes up again and again, reduced project risk, increased productivity, and on and on. Across 200 companies. This is just a handful. Wow. So if you're not looking at this, time to have a serious look. Well, what the heck is Agile? I saw somebody do a little dance up here. Agile's, I think that was you, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, I didn't mean to represent it.
I know. Agile is not in this game, by the way, Agile is not an adjective. Okay? It's not just being quick and nimble. It's a whole set of methodologies that were carefully developed and tested and tried in Silicon Valley over the 1990s. And finally, towards the end of the early part of this century, a group of them got together, the so-called gurus, got together in a cabin in Utah and put together the fundamental tenets of the methodology. And that came as a result of the Agile Manifesto, which is almost like their 10 commandments, or beginning of a new religion, if you will.
It is religious.
It is somewhat religious-like, yes, I agree. With all the strengths and all the weaknesses of a good religion. Okay, you got to be, okay, I should be careful what I say about religion here. One of the things is the focus on the customer. Well, hello, that's not new to us. But to the software guys, all huddled in a room writing code, never talked to a customer in the room, that was pretty new. But here's some other things. Welcoming change. Product definitions agreed to before development begins no longer count. Nothing to say. The expectation is the product definition will change. In fact, it's probably only 40% defined when you enter development. Boy, oh boy, try to sell that to your management. You know, a business case built on a project that we only know its definition is 40%. That's going to be a neat sell. They use a time-boxed iterative approach. The word sprint has come up here a number of times. A picture of a group of people sitting in a room writing code, going like heck. They got 2 weeks These sprints are typically 1 to 4 weeks. 2 weeks is about average for software. And at the end of that 2 weeks, by the way, that's time bound. It means Friday night, 5 o'clock, that's it. It doesn't mean slide to Monday morning. By 5 o'clock, we have to have it finished, whatever we promised to have, and we gotta also demo it, and demo it to customers, and demo it to management. Time box, so a high degree of time pressure to go accomplish what the team said they would accomplish in the next 2 week period. By the way, the team decides what they're gonna accomplish, not management. You gotta deliver something of value after each iteration. In the case of software, it's code that actually works, screens that you can show somebody. Something you can demo, not a PowerPoint presentation, by the way. That doesn't count. You gotta demo the product. You have evolutionary development. The product definition keeps changing as you get feedback along the way. So you demo some stuff a couple of times to a group of customers. They say, not quite what we had in mind. So the definition changes. That's very different than the way most of us run it now, isn't it? Adaptive planning. What's the first thing that changes as soon as you, in the military, as soon as you have contact with the enemy? What's the first thing that's changed within the first hours of D-Day landing in Normandy? The plan. Yeah. 2 years Eisenhower spent planning that invasion. And within the first 2 hours, the plan changed. Why? Because things aren't quite as you thought they were going to be. And so the plan keeps changing. That's another neat trick. How are you going to get a project approved if you don't know what the plan is, and you therefore don't know what the cost of the project development is going to be, because there's no plan, no timeline? It's a bit like starting construction of a house with no plans. And you come up and look at the property and say, well, why don't we start with a hole here? That's about as far as the plan goes. People interacting versus following a process, well, we can't argue with that. An empowered team. Now, many of us have always practiced or preached empowered teams. That's not new to us again. But these guys really want to emphasize that. And a dedicated team. Hard for us to do. For one thing, in physical product development, very often you have waiting times. Waiting for test results. Waiting for the paint to dry on those stamps, right? And what's the team going to do? Sit on their hands for the next 3 weeks waiting for the paint to dry? No, they're going to work on another project, of course. Or some other facet of the project, right? Co-located is another one, all in one room. Again, that might be difficult for us to do given that we have cross-functional teams. Marketing, R&D, production, and even R&D require different equipment, which might not be convenient to put all in one room. But you can see why they're doing it this way. Okay. So here's the traditional model. There was the target originally. Unfortunately, life being what it is, you know, even in traditional. Yes, sir.
Just a question. How is it different than the rolling wave planning in project management?
Similar.
Is it right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's elements of a lot of other techniques all rolled up into this. Fair enough?
Yeah.
In fact, if I have a diagram that shows you an umbrella with all the different tools and techniques rolled up into one. Crystal, lean, extreme, you know, there's a whole variety of different tools rolled up into this one called Agile. Unfortunately, the target changes. That's always like, even in our projects, right? What you started out developing and what you ended up, you know, is a little bit different. Why does it change? Well, there's this nasty thing called the wind out there. It blows the target a bit. Customers change their mind, competitive products launch, market requirements change, etc. This is Agile. Think of it more as a heat-seeking missile, like a Sidewinder. It'll constantly change. You've seen those movies where the missiles keep tracking the plane no matter which direction the plane goes. That's sort of the notion of Agile. In Agile, the target is evolving, and therefore the plan is unpredictable when you start out. You can't draw a plan of action into the future. A couple of definitions, we've heard some of them. A sprint is the basic unit in Agile Scrum. Scrum is one of the more popular techniques in Agile. It lasts typically in software 1 to 4 weeks. They are time boxed, just to repeat here a little bit. Each sprint starts with a team meeting called the sprint planning meeting, where the whole team gathers and says, hey guys, what can we get done in the next, say, 2 weeks? Let's map out a list of things we will achieve, objectives, and our plan of action over the next 2 weeks, day by day. We agree on the sprint goals, what we're going to achieve. We map out the tasks. And then we start the sprint. And every morning at 8 o'clock, we meet to discuss what we got done yesterday, what we're going to get done today, and what's holding us back. How come we're half a day behind? There's a real intense pressure on getting the thing done on time. Now, this is software, okay? You're probably saying, hey, this is never going to happen in my business. You're right. But there's elements that you can adopt. 15 to 20 minutes to organize each day. That's typically the daily stand-up. Set priorities, shift responsibilities, manage knowledge. Every problem is solved, or hopefully solved, within 24 hours. So little problems don't grow to become, molehills in the mountains. And then at the end of the sprint, there's a demo, usually to customers, and also to management to seek continued buy-in. Not a gate meeting. One of my companies in Europe calls it an upgate. Like an update kind of thing, but it's an upgate. Not a gate meeting. You go nuts if you're building gate meetings at that frequency. But let's face it, management looks at it, and if they see something really wrong, they can sort of demand an immediate emergency gate, of course. And a retrospective meeting with the project team gets together at 4 o'clock Friday and says, it's a tough 2 weeks. We did some things well, some things bad. How can we improve the way we behave and work together in the next 2 weeks? So the team is a self-improving team constantly. Okay. Lessons learned. That's a typical daily scrum. This particular company was photographed. You notice the guy takes the chairs out of the room. So they have nowhere to sit and gag for hours. It's a fast meeting. Now, Chamberlain, I sort of preempted myself because we weren't quite ready. What Richard's gone to, and his successor, David Studa, who now continues to do this, they use sprints and scrums for physical and IT products together. The scrums are about 20 minutes. Those are the daily stand-ups. They build in design reviews into some scrums, and they actually bring in peers. Peer review. That should be peer, not pair. And outsiders. There's a scrum master in place. What's his or her role? She's the coach. She's the person that makes sure the team is following the principles and rules of Agile. She is not the project leader. They have sprints about 2 weeks in length. They weren't long enough because they couldn't deliver anything in 2 weeks just to show. So they've stretched to 3 weeks. That's typical. 3 to 4 for manufacturing. They got to show something physical, the result of a completed task at the end of every 3 weeks. Not a PowerPoint show. But it could be design drawings, or a CAD representation, a prototype, or a virtual product. FedEx is using virtual reality to demo products to customers, like new drop boxes, things like that. Project teams have dedicated team members, says Richard. But because of that, we can't use it for every darn project. We go nuts. So we only use it for the larger projects where there's some ambiguity, which is about 20% or 1/5 of all our projects. Not realistic to use it for all. It's working well. It's now just 7 years, not quite, and working very well. One of the problems they had at the beginning, and you hear this from Agile folks, there's so much focus. Think of football. So much focus on the next 10 yards, the sprint, that nobody worries about where the goalposts are. And so the team ends up wandering around the field, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, with that lack of where the hell are we going. So management had to intervene a lot. Hey, do you guys know where the goalposts are here? Here's a typical stage gate and Agile model built in together. These circles here represent the Agile part of it. Agile is project management, by the way. Stage gate is not. If you think about the project management tools we use in stage gate, there are things like Gantt charts, timelines, etc., right? That's traditional project management. Throw that stuff out and put in the Agile project management tools. That's essentially what they're doing. So so they're still keeping the structure of the stages. There is a development stage, there is a launch stage, there's a build business case stage. They're still keeping the principle of gates. Should we do the project or not? And if yes, let's commit the resources. That's a key role of the gate. But in addition to that, they're building into the stages. The green circles, which are the sprints, and the vertical red circles, which are the demos to customers. You'll notice there's not a demo at the end of every sprint. That's physically impossible. Customers will get tired of the sight of you. Okay? Some people ask the question, and we have some articles on this, for which stages is it best? And that's, the jury's out on some of this stuff, by the way. This is a fairly new approach for most companies, and they're still learning. So the emergent dominant model has not yet been discovered. It took about 10 years for stage gate to become standardized. We're only 6 years into this. Some companies say it works really well in the early stages. I.e., it fits very well with design thinking, for example. We're talking about design. Fits very well with design thinking. Other people say it works really well in development and testing, because that's where it was really originated for in software. Some people even use it for launch or commercialization, production startup, etc. There's a lot of demos. Part of this says you've got to have something you can demo at the end of every sprint, and that's a big challenge for physical product developers. What the heck can you get done in 3 weeks that you can show? Well, they get very creative here.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you the same question, because I mean, physical and IT stuff, so IoT and materials, equipment, et cetera. But, you know, when you're relying on customers to do a demo, and they have to have a trial, and they have to put their plant down.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not seeing.
It's different.
If it doesn't include IT, I'm not sure how you apply the IT.
What they are doing is they're not obviously delivering a product the customer can trial in his or her plant. They're delivering something that gives the customer a pretty good idea what the product will be and do. Okay?
Okay, so it's just reactive to paperwork.
Not necessarily. This is a 3D printed cake. Believe it or not. People are using 3D printing to get stuff out, pretty large stuff, out on the table in front of the customer early in the game. Some people, especially in design thinking, are using very simple models, right? Cardboard, things built of Lego blocks, paper, cardboard, clay, wax. You know, in the car industry, they still use wax models of new automobiles, clay models. So they literally carve the damn car. Because an automobile, after all, is a piece of work on the wheel. Piece of art on the wheel. Drawings and sketches, CAD, 3D CAD, a series of MVPs, minimally viable products, that have zero features and functionality, but enough to interest the early adopters that are prepared to live with the lack of features and functionality. Rapid prototypes, 3D printed, crude working models, early prototypes, 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 there's a whole variety of words for these. Something that you can get in front of people that they can respond to. Because Steve Jobs had a famous quotation, people don't know what they're looking for until they see it. So show them something, early, often, fast, cheap. It's gotta be cheap. Some people are using virtual reality, augmented reality to show the product. I read with interest a case study of FedEx. They're trying to develop a new drop box to prevent porch pirates. They designed a drop box out of cardboard, made a early prototype out of cardboard. Brought people into their labs. People couldn't relate to it. Not in my home. Without going to their home and doing tests there, which would have got quite expensive, how do you think they did it? Virtual reality. They brought the person's home into the lab with goggles, and the person was able to use the drop box that way. Wow, interesting. Anything that you can demo to the customer before and during development. Before would be like the design thinking part, and during would be more about prototype or something like that. And it addresses two questions. Obviously, as you're building models, CAD diagrams, and prototypes, you're addressing some of the technical issues. Can it be developed? And then the other questions are the market facing. By the way, we'll give you a set of these slides. They're not expired. Does the customer like it?
Excuse me. My company makes packaging for consumer products.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're realizing is that our customer already has Agile in place with their design agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So like BBDO, they've got a big contract, they're co-located, and their creative side on the brand has been basically doing pitch presentations and these sort of notions, and now we're seeing
A bit of pressure on you.
well, what's happening is that was fine to separate the creative from the physical, but now when you think about like a candy package, they're trying to integrate, apps and personalization, Internet of Things, digitizing the package. So we're getting into this, but we're realizing right away that there's a part of the business world called agency, creative agency.
Okay.
Which if you sell a consumer company like we do, you almost have to say, you're already doing agile, but you just need to bring us into that,
Process.
into the process, and that's how we're
Yeah.
doing it.
And for you, you may have to adopt and adapt.
Yeah.
Because it's not quite perfect for, most manufacturers have said we've had to do a bit of an adaptation. It doesn't work 100% out of the box. By the way, speaking of packaging companies, one of the guys that was leading the charge on this is Tetra Pak. Okay, they're very much into IoT, monitoring their machine, they sell them in packaging machines as well as material, the brick pack. So that was sort of a logical what they already were doing IT development. But now they're doing it for the physical part of the product, they're doing agile. Interesting. Oh, by the way, speaking of 3D, that jet engine was 3D printed. Now, I'm not sure I want to fly in that plane, but that I assume is for a test stand. So it's amazing what you can do. FedEx, I mentioned, jumped ahead of myself here, test prototype drop boxes using VR. Here was coming up with the design, and this is the lady actually trying the drop box in her own home, her imaginary own home, using VR. That's what FedEx is now using VR for. Volvo trucks, I mentioned Volvo before, I have a close relationship with those guys. They test new construction vehicles that don't yet exist. It's like a flight simulator where they put these drivers into these things that sort of resemble the cab of a truck. When the guys drive it, and they tell what they like and don't like about the drivability, etc. Real driver. A lot cheaper and faster to develop the software than the truck itself. This is an interesting one. The lady that first coined this agile stage gate nomenclature is called Anita Summer, and I've written a number of articles with her. She's very bright. Fairly recently made a PhD out of some Danish university. Don't ask me. She did her PhD in this area. She was interested in product development. She found 5 companies that were willing to cooperate with her. They had all been experimenting with this agile and stage gate approach. So she sort of did her thesis study in the 5 companies. One of the companies was Lego, a B2B unit called Lego Education. This is a business unit that sells software and hardware products to elementary school teachers to help your kid become a better speller, reader, or writer. Okay? And this is called Lego Education. I don't know if your school uses it. They came up with a new product idea in 2011 called Story Starter. How's my time? Am I welcoming my... No? Okay. Yell if you're getting bored here. Story Starter was supposed to take smaller children and enable the teacher to help them become creative writers. And the project team, traditional designers, Lego guys, software guys, etc., really struggled with this project. Because they did voice a customer, and they gathered a panel of teachers, and they say to the teachers, what are you folks looking for? And the teachers would say, we're looking for something to help Johnny or Mary become a better, more creative writer. Right, can you be more specific? No, we can't be more specific. Why don't you tell us what you had in mind? Their tried and proven rigid stage gate process did not work so well for this highly ambiguous product where the customer didn't even know what she wanted. Fair enough? What do you do when VOC doesn't work? No number of market studies would have revealed what the customer wanted. The project leader wisely, I'm going backwards here, sir, wisely decided to incorporate a hefty dose of digital into the product and brought a specialized team onto his team called the Digital Solutions Group, who coincidentally were already using Agile to develop software. They joined the team and said, by the way, this is about 2014. So these guys are mired in the mud for 3 years. And they said, hey, why don't you give this Agile a try? It can't be any worse than what you've been doing for the last 3 years. So they did. brought Agile with it. They had to modify it a bit, decided to try it. Management did not want to use the strategic benefits of StageGate, so they kept that while implementing Agile as a project management tool within the stages of StageGate. And the so-called Agile StageGate hybrid model emerged. Probably they were the ones that used the phrase first. They began using it, sprints, 15-minute daily stand-up, very similar to my friend Richard at Chamberlain. A visual Scrum board is a very visual process. There's a lot of very visual charts. In fact, in one company I went by, the various Scrum rooms, one wall with glass, and then the glass wall so you can see the team. On the glass wall is all kinds of charts, burned down charts, so you can tell in a minute whether these guys are half a day ahead or half a day behind time. Daily activity logs, prioritized project backlogs, sprint planning meetings, the whole 9 yards they put in. And they used it during the development phase and continued into the so-called implementation phase, which you might call launch or commercialization, in Lego StageGate model. And the result was a remarkable, like unbelievable, too good to be true, acceleration. Immediate increase in productivity, much better team communication, improved workflow each day, problems solved at the next morning's Scrum meeting. Problems didn't linger and fester. And it resulted in the launch of this highly successful product in 12 months, after screwing around for 3 years. Well, maybe that was a fluke. So they gave it another try. I don't have that slide, but the other try was they tried another, yes sir.
Have you seen this? This is great. I mean, have you seen this carried through launch and into execution?
Yes.
With the project teams continuing to?
Yes, but not usual. But that's not usual.
Okay.
Most people, the minute you start getting interfacing with the plant, then you run into some other rule break.
Right.
You know, you're not going to co-locate a team, are you?
Right.
Things like that. We have an article out called the Emerging Dominant Model, which is sort of the average across companies about what they've adopted and what they haven't adopted from the Agile rulebook. So if you're interested in that, I can make that available. People are interested in that?
Yeah.
And that came out from the SIM Center, Center for Innovation Management Studies at a research park, Raleigh, Durham area. And that's not, it's just a report, so it's not highly copyrighted. So I'll make that available, Rand.
Yeah, we can get it out to everyone.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, how
Yeah,
do you-
yes, sir. Yeah, man.
How do you pull customers along with this? Because part of our problem is not the development, is getting the customers
Yeah.
to move faster with their development, because we're too big. Our product
Yeah.
goes into something that goes into a.
Yeah, and one of the things we've heard, and I gotta be careful about revealing confidence here, in some of these company names. The deal is you gotta find a customer or two that's prepared to work with you on that basis, because there's something in it for them too. For example, suppose I'm Dow Chemical, and you're my customer, Tom. I'm the predominant supplier of acrylic paper. It's Dow bought Roman Hoff, so they inventor of acrylic. So I'm a principal supplier to you, you're a consumer, you're on the B2B side of it. So what I've got to do is go to you and say, hey, if you'll work with me on this Agile basis, that means every 3 weeks I'm in your face with something new. And you got to get an answer back to me fast. That's the deal. And Thomas is going to say, well, what's in it for me? And I'll say, what's in it for you is this. We're going to be first on the market all the time in the paint business. We're going to beat PPG, we're going to beat Bayer, we're going to beat all those other guys, because I'm going to be working with you first. That's the deal. So you got to do some kind of a proposition like that. Got to find one or two hot prospects that are prepared to work on that basis. If they're not, it ain't going to work. But there's usually a win-win that you can work out. Because enough customers have heard about this, that they're prepared to try it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have a few co-innovation partnerships with large customers, and what we found both sides, the stage gate, the binary decisions, the long time period, when you do that across two ecosystems, it gets like 10 times slower. The frowny phase is just more frowny. And so we decided that we have to go agile. Both companies are trying to figure out, okay, this is a big leap for two companies, but we're going to test it. And it's the only way is to do some sort of, their stage gate, what's the company that we're working with is stage gate. And we're both looking at bringing agile into
how do we make it work together?
Just
for a
because
win-win?
by co-innovation, it can't work.
Smart.
You bring value that way. Yeah, that's it.
I work in the packaging industry too, and at a former employer, and we invested a lot in the facilities, but we could go from, actually a customer just drawing a concept to a physical prototype, not for commercial sale, within a day and a half. That would usually take 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
But one of the key things, about that was establishing the guardrails up front. Okay, so you have this great concept of because everything has to go through machinery, processing, and has to work at the end. And using those guardrails as a key step before you even started drawing things was really, really important to achieve that.
So what would be an example of a guardrail?
An example would be has to run at 300 pieces per minute, cannot incorporate an XYZ raw material, must be able to have X amount of tensile strength, technical
So
things.
high level steps.
Just very, very, very high level.
steps. Okay, I think I'm running out of time. Oh, one last question.
Could you touch on 2 points made for the team? You just answered one, this idea of how to, bring customer feedback or which customers to the process. I work a lot with digital projects, people like Capital One and Carmack. The other 2 key success drivers of being agile environment, one is aligned incentives within the sprint. I know you're probably well familiar with the point system.
Yeah.
And that is a huge success driver, the fact that everybody has an incentive that affects the company and personally to get the work done.
Mhm.
Second one is those organizations that are optimized on agile, there is no distinction between product innovation and R&D. There's one aligned process
Yeah.
out in the market, and that's not the way a lot of companies are organized. So I just wonder what success you've seen, either in getting incentives aligned so you can do agile in a manufacturing environment.
One of the biggest detriments to making it work has been the KPIs on individuals are inconsistent with the agile mindset, agile methodology, and companies are working on that now, manufacturers. That's been one of the
I mean, you can't, that's a point, but there must be a way to get aligned.
Well, I guess HR departments are struggling with that now, because, obviously KPIs on individuals have to be aligned with the system. And in many cases, they weren't. That was a big negative that came up, in some of these big, large sample studies. Your second point was, and I forgot.
Well, just the organizational piece, I mean, these companies are well established.
Yeah.
And that lack of boundaries,
Yeah.
It's basically product back, right? It is, product owners own the entire process, but there's no distinction functionally. And that's a way of accelerating.
You've raised one of the elephants in the room, and I'm not sure we're gonna have time to discuss it now, because we're gonna talk privately. There's a lot of organizational changes that Agile proposes. One is, you don't have a project leader or project manager anymore. A lot of manufacturers reject that category. That's not possible. Another one is you have a product owner, who's typically a marketing guy who meets with the team on a regular basis to pretty well discuss with the team what they have to develop. The input being the team is discouraged from doing great customer research. Well, that's not gonna fly in our company either. Where some dictator from marketing says, develop this. That's kiss of death, right? Probably got it all wrong. So there's a lot of things that we don't buy, hook, line, and sinker, from the software guys in Silicon Valley. Be careful. This is a religion. Don't get suckered into all aspects of it. One guy said to me at a meeting in Europe once, it's a bit like the 10 Commandments. How many commandments can you reject before you're no longer considered a good Christian or a good Jew? How many can you break? Like coveting my neighbor's wife, okay? It's sort of an interesting one. How many can you throw out? Just a quick summary. Stages are typically broken down into short sprints. 3 to 4 weeks is common for manufacturers. We work from the sprint backlogs. This is a very visual chart that shows what we've got done so far this 3 weeks and what's left to be done, and whether we're a half day behind or a half day ahead. Created at the sprint planning meeting. We have these regular stand-ups or scrums. Some people have discovered in research that they're really critical, and if the team starts missing them, we're in big trouble. The manufacturing guys always have an excuse why not to be there. Big trouble. Sprint progress is monitored via a burn-down chart, which plots tasks versus time. There's a lot of Kanban board type visual presentations on tasks. Scrum board, also a Kanban board, backlog chart. Project teams are dedicated. Ideally, ain't gonna happen. We're seeing the phrase focus. Tetra Pak's done a lot of research on how dedicated you have to be in order to be dedicated. They said, how about the rule, 50% of your time on project X, and the other 50% you can work on other things. Didn't work. Why? Because the other things, guess what? Became more urgent and took over the first 50%, so they tried different models. But basically, it looks like 65 to 70% on one, and no more than 2 or 3 other projects. And that's called a focus team. Co-located, ideally, again, ain't gonna happen, especially if you have teams spread all over the world, your IT groups in India, etc. Now what are you gonna do? But there are a number of solutions in the article that we're gonna send around to you. Some articles to read, and I'm out of time, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So there is indeed a feedback sheet. I think you can see the potential value in having this as a course. It's not scheduled, so we really need a generation of interest, either a core group of 5 to 8 people in a company who want us to put that on. We'll do it there. We'll do it locally at the same date that's convenient to them. Then we'll bring other people in. Or if every one of you want to send 1 or 2 people, we can do it that way too. But please give me some feedback on that sheet. Also noteworthy is that one of our speakers, Steve Wilkinson from Armstrong World Industries, is speaking about how they applied this very thing. He was a student of Dr. Cooper, and
Forgot to mention that.
yeah, he's going to be presenting in the conference. So, Dr. Cooper, thanks a lot.
Bob, please.
Yeah, Bob, say hello to Phil Cotler for me.
I will.
Okay. And let's see, are we at a break time? 11, yeah. So before we do break, everybody get out here right in the middle real quick. We'll do a big group photo, and then we'll take a 15-minute break.
All right.